Hey everyone, it is finally here, the IOD release for summer 2025, and I am super excited to share with you the projects that I worked on this week. If you are new here, my name is Leanne. I am the face behind Small Gestures Vintage and Crafts, and I am glad that you're here with us. Yes, this week I am playing around with two of the transfers, a stamp and a paint and lay. So without further ado, if you are ready, let's do it. For my first project this week, I am taking this candlestick, this riser, and giving it a bit of a makeover. So you know me, texture is going to be a big word in this week's video, I think. So I am mixing a little bit of Sea Spray by Dixie Belle with Fusion Mineral Paint, and this is in the color Ash, so it's like a graphite, a dark gray. And I just mixed it together and just kind of dabbed it randomly around the candlestick. My paint was getting a little dry, but I wanted more texture, so I actually just sprinkled some onto the wet paint and then went over it with the paintbrush to just add a little bit of texture that we're going to paint over and then sand off. After my texture paint thoroughly dried, then I went over it with Endless Shore, and this is by Dixie Belle. It's a silk mineral paint, so it has a top coat built in, and I think it actually only took about a coat and a half. The coverage was really good on this, so I went over everything, and then once that was dry, I got out my sanding pad to distress it back. I wanted to reveal some of that dark gray, that texture below, as well as a bit of the blue paint that we originally started with. I just pulled out a baby wipe and cleaned all of the dust off, and we're going to go in with some transfers. So Saint Germain is the transfer that I used for this project, and I didn't film that first one because I had a heck of a time getting that transfer down, and my idea was I was going to use these two pieces, which look great on a flat surface, but when you deal with something with curves, you can see how it changes the shape, and it wouldn't have looked right. So I switched gears and pulled out another floral and these other little spriggy viney things and made some relief cuts before I put the transfers down. And I realized after I did the first one why I had such a hard time getting the transfer down. It wasn't sticking at all. And what I realized is I thought it might have something to do with that baby wipe that I used to clean the surface. So before I put these transfers down, I just went over, I spritzed the whole thing with water and just went over it with a dust rag just to get any of that residue from the baby wipe off. I just cleaned it with some water and it made a world of difference. So if you ever find that your transfers, for whatever reason, out of the blue, it seems like they're not sticking, see if you're using maybe a baby wipe or something that has some type of a coating to clean your surface. That may be the culprit. So after all the transfers were down and they were all burnished, which basically you're just rubbing the carrier sheet over the transfers just to make sure that everything is adhered properly and you don't have any air bubbles or anything, I made a little bit of a switch in how I was going to handle this project. When I distressed this back, I distressed a good bit back to that light blue because the original transfers I was going to use had blue in them, but these do not. And I didn't like the baby blue showing. It really didn't match with those transfers. So we're going to do something that I've never done before, and we're going to use some gold leaf. I bought this kit off Amazon and it gives you the glue and I think it's 100 gold leaf sheets and 2 little brushes, and I will link it in the description below, but basically I just took a brush, an old brush, and you just dab the glue around and then let it sit for 30 minutes and it gets super tacky, and then you just pull out the gold leaf. And this is me like trying to save all of the gold leaf and not, be as economical as possible and not just use a whole sheet. This is, mind you, this is the beginning. Wait till we get till the end. But it becomes super tacky after 30 minutes, and you just lay the gold leaf down, and I just pressed it all over. And then once I was sure that all of the glue was covered, then you just come along, and I used one of their brushes that's provided in the box, and just flake off all of the gold leaf that is not adhered to any glue. I will warn you, if you do not like glitter, gold leaf might not be for you, because like glitter, it gets everywhere. And I actually think I may have seen a little gold fleck or two going in the fry pan this night for dinner, because I had it everywhere. When I was completely done, it was very shiny, so I just took one of my sanding pads and scuffed it up. I just wanted to tone it down a little bit, but I still didn't like it. I think I went a little heavy-handed with the gold. It was a new play toy, and I got a little ambitious with it, so I went back with some of that drop cloth paint and covered it up. I either covered the gold leaf up completely or just toned it down a bit so it was just kind of peeking through, because I felt like I went a little heavy-handed. So here is the beginning, and this is the final product. I did also apply a top coat over the gold and the transfers, and I used just Dixie Belle in the flat finish. So project number 2 this week starts with a thank you to Royce for showing us some beautiful projects on an old clipboard. So now I am always on the lookout for them, because we're going to do some decoupage with just plain old tissue paper, because you know it, I want texture. So I'm just wrinkling it up, crumpling it all up, and I'm saving my DIY liquid patina and just using regular old Mod Podge, just the same way that you would decoupage anything, except I'm not spritzing the tissue paper. I am just putting down the Mod Podge, laying down all of my beautiful crinkly tissue paper, and then just smushing it together. That's my technical crafting term. I'm just smushing it down. After everything was good and dry, then I just came in with a sanding sponge and in a downward motion just sanded along the edges just to take off all of that excess tissue paper. Honestly, I just kept staring at this. I just love this. It reminded me of like roots going down into the ground. I just loved how it looked. So we're starting off. I have put a base coat down here of White Cap by Dixie Belle, just a white paint, And then I have White Swan that I squirted on up there at the top. And all of these are DIY paints. We have Cake Batter, the yellow, Petticoat Pink, and Cowgirl Coral. And I have my DIY blending brush, and we're going to blend these colors and show the beautiful highlights on this tissue paper. You know, when you're cooking and they say measure with your heart, that's the way I think about blending. There is no rhyme or reason in my mind. I'm just adding colors until I guess it kind of speaks to me. I keep moving them around. I keep drying off my brush. I spritz it with more water. I add more pink. I add more yellow, whatever, until it feels right. I'm happy with how it looks, so I spritzed just a shop rag with a little bit of water, and I spritzed some water on the surface, and then I'm just barely wiping off the paint, just kind of dragging it across the texture, and that just brings out the highlights in that tissue paper. And because it's painted white, it just kind of pops through the colored paint and then makes that texture stand out a little bit more. After my paint was dry, then I just came in with Dixie Belle top coat in flat and let this dry before we move on to step 3. So this is the first time I'm using this stamp from this summer release. This is called the Waltz, and the first time you use a stamp you need to season it. So I've got a clean 220 piece of sandpaper, and then you just gently wipe in each direction on the stamp, and it's the only time you have to do it, just one time, and then I'm just deciding how I want to lay this out. And I'm using Ranger archival ink. I believe it's a permanent ink, and it's called Watering Can. It's just a dark gray because I didn't want anything to stand out and be too intense. So I'm just dabbing on the gray, and we're gonna get stamping. I don't think I pressed down enough or put enough ink on that second section, so I'm just going back in just to retouch that up, and then also add another little stamp across the very bottom there. My stamp has dried, so now we are using one of the other transfers in this release, and this is Menagerie. It is filled with beautiful birds and bird cages and branches and lots of bees, and it is beautiful. This release, this transfer book is so gorgeous. There are 5 bird cages, 11 birds. It was not actually my favorite when I first saw him, but it quickly is becoming my favorite, and I'm going to have to pick up another one because I have a rather large project planned using all of these pretties. The last step in this transfer involves me blowing the dust out of my brain and using my Cricut. It's been a while since I've used this, but I wanted to add some text onto this piece, and so that's what we did. I had a certain way that I thought it was going to look in my head, and I felt under the gun this week, to be honest with you, because I lost 2.5 days creating with a holiday, and this was late at night, and I was trying to rush things. So when I had finished this part, honestly, I wasn't very happy with it. I felt like I had ruined the whole piece. The word music looked great, but I looked at it and I said the is crooked. Outburst pulled off the leaves. Of the wasn't sealed good. I had bleed through, and the word soul was too far down. So I went to bed after finishing this project, and I was thoroughly discouraged. I felt like I had ruined this whole piece. So I slept on it, came down the next day, still felt the same way, and then I just pulled out the book and played with it a little more, and I am really glad I did. I'm glad I didn't throw in the towel and just get super frustrated with it and down on myself. I just kept playing with it and tweaking it, and really happy with the end result. And I love this saying. This actually was my daughter's first tattoo that she got on her foot when she played viola for 8, 9, 10 years. So I've always loved this saying, and I thought it was absolutely perfect with this stamp. Before and after. So thankfully, my third project is not nearly as labor intensive as the one preceding it. This is just an old suitcase in incredible condition. I got at a church yard sale for a whopping $2. It does not smell musty. It has the original tags, the key. It is in near pristine condition. And when I was at Angry Mama's in Ball Ground, Georgia, with Heather from Create Your Own Cozy, when this launch was released, and I saw this transfer, I knew it would be perfect on this suitcase. There are so many gorgeous florals in this book. I just absolutely love them. I got all of the items from this year's or this summer's release from Heather at Create Your Own Cozy, and I will link her website below as well. But I went through and just started cutting out a variety of transfers. As soon as I got this suitcase, my thought was going to be it would be perfect for like a bride for a wedding to hold all of your keepsakes and mementos, or a special anniversary or a baby or something like that, because it was so clean on the inside. So I just got to work. I pulled out, like I said, I cut a bunch of transfers out and then just tried to position them the way that I wanted them to appear, taped them down. And it did take a little bit more work, definitely, for the suitcase because it has such a bumpy texture. So I actually In the end, I ended up switching and used my Cricut scraper. It was a little wider and it was easier for me to grip onto. It wasn't so tiring on the old index finger, pushing down trying to get these transfers in. So I did this cluster of floral on the front, and then on the back side I just did a little spray of floral up in one of the top corners. And once the transfers were done, I just went over it with a sanding pad just to distress them a little bit, and then they all got topped with some Dixie Belle clear top coat. So here is my rummage sale find, and here is a beautiful gift for a bride-to-be. So my fourth and final project this week is the smallest and the one I was dreading the most because it was a paint inlay. So I have this little wooden vase. I think this is a magnolia, a hearth and home little wooden vase, and I sprayed it with a couple of coats of shellac before I started painting. And this is DIY's paint in cake batter. It is a beautiful soft creamy yellow that takes I think it was a good 3 coats that I used on this little vase. So Ditzy Blooms is the name of this paint inlay, and I love the beautiful colors, the sweet florals. It's so pretty, but they just intimidate the heck out of me. I tell ya, I don't know what it is. So I decided to go around the edge with this little band of floral. So I've got 3 coats of paint on here, and I'm going around, and I think I went a little heavy-handed. My paint was a little thick. It probably could have been thinned out a little bit, and I put a really thick coat on there, and I don't think it needed to be that thick, but I spritzed the inlay and just started laying it in the paint. And I thought that if I just really pressed down just on the inlay image and not around the edge of the paper, I would be able to avoid those little lines that you get when you do the inlays. But I didn't account for the curved surface and how when it dries and thick paint, you're gonna have lines all along your curved surface. So that was a little surprise. So my inlay is dry. At least I think it's completely dry, and I'm ready to remove it. So I spritzed it with water and then let it sit for about 30 seconds and peeled it off. I know the transfer or the inlay is really super light in some areas, and when I was peeling it off, I thought, well, maybe the paint hadn't fully dried before I peeled it off. Maybe that was part of my problem too. I'm not sure. I need to play around with them some more, that's for sure. I do think this vase turned out really sweet, and just a nice little summer addition to my booth. I did pull out my finger sander and my sanding sponge to just kind of knock down some of those ridges from the inlay being curved around the edge. I just wanted to smooth it out a little bit, and then it got 2 coats of Rust-Oleum 2X in clear matte. You can use a water-based sealer on it. The inlay is paint that is just embedded in your base color. So if you use if you use a brush to seal it, you just have to be really careful because it will reactivate the image, and just make sure that your brush is really loaded down with your top coat and don't go over it too many times. I'm not brave enough to do that yet, so it just gets a coat of a spray sealer. Thank you again for hanging out with me this week. I hope you enjoyed this week's projects. Please leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you. And if you like the video, I would appreciate a like, subscribe, and share it if you know someone that would appreciate and like my content. And until next time, take care.